can get just a picture of what you'll be seeing this hour. We're talking about a new manager for the Braves. We're awaiting a press conference to start with more information on who he is. He is certainly not new to Major League Baseball or the Braves, so we'll check in on that press conference as soon as that gets started. It's also day 35 of the government shutdown. We're hearing from House Speaker Mike Johnson. Plus, we'll have more on the local organization that's chipping in to keep you and your families fed. So we'll have a look at how you can take advantage of that. But again, we're still waiting on this press conference to start here with the Braves. But something else big that is happening here in Georgia is the fact that it is Election Day. And it means that voters are headed there to the polls to decide on some major races. So let's join our Good Days, our Fox 5's, I guess, Deidre Dukes, who's joining us now from the polls with a look at some of the big races that are at stake, some of the big issues that voters will cast their ballots on. So, Deidre, good morning. Good to see you.
Hey, good morning, Elise, and we're joining you live from the Buckhead Library here in Atlanta, and this is one of those locations where we visit often during elections, both for early voting and on Election Day, and I could tell you this is definitely one of those areas where you see residents, voters in this community are very much engaged. Now, a lot of times we find that there are lines out the door and around the corner, and while this morning, that's not the case, we're seeing a steady stream of people making their way here this morning, casting their ballots here on Election Day. You know, Atlanta residents, of course, are joining Georgians across the state and casting ballots in their respective municipal races and also the statewide PSC races, with 2 seats there up for grabs on the Public Service Commission board. Now, of course, we've been inundated with ads, as you know, Elise. We've seen heavy campaigning in the PSC race as two Democrats try to unseat Republican incumbents on the 5-member Republican-controlled board. We want to note also that while polls close across the state at 7 p.m. this evening, polls will remain open here in the city of Atlanta until 8 p.m. following a court order. Atlanta residents will be able to cast ballots for candidates in the city races. They will not be able to vote in the PSC race during that last hour. But again, residents following a court order in the city of Atlanta are being given an extra hour from 7 to 8 p.m. this evening to cast their ballots in their respective local races. So Election Day for me, Elise, is always an exciting day. I did cast my ballot early, but I just love coming out here and seeing so many people engaged in the process.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. You know, I was actually going to ask you that. Are you an early voter or do you do day of? But here's what I imagine. You vote early because you're usually covering all of the election goodness on Election Day. So definitely makes a lot of sense. And Deidre, certainly a big day ahead. So we appreciate you filling us in on it, Deidre. Thank you so much for that.
Sure.
Our time is now 11:03. We want to get you out to this press conference all about the new manager for the Atlanta Braves. So let's listen in.
Our baseball operations team. I know it took a little longer than everybody expected or wanted, but this was important for us. It was important for us to get it right. It was a rare opportunity for us to really canvass the entire game, teams, the league, talk to as many people, do as much background work as we could, and ultimately that search came back to Walt. And I couldn't be more excited. His experience, his character, his work ethic is exactly what we want here, and we expect great things going forward, and we expect to get back to the playoffs going forward. So with that, I want to present him with his jersey and his hat. He's going to switch from 4 to 22, what he wore as a player, and I just want to congratulate Walt on the new manager of the Braves.
All right.
And we'll do a photo. You hat, and you hold it. We'll take photos first. You hold one side, hold the other. Yeah. And then we'll, yeah. All right, good? Yeah. Jacket.
Thanks, Mitch.
Thanks. There you go.
Dramatic pause here for the buttons.
Looks good. Snaps next year.
You get one button at the top.
I get one.
He gets one button. Congratulations.
Yeah.
floor is yours.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like Alex said, thanks for being here. You know, it's been an interesting process. You know, I think I'm very excited once Snit stepped away and I became a part of this. It was something I got really excited about. So, you know, my history here, my last 8 years, I think. You know, I'm hoping it'll be a seamless transition here because of the relationships, not only with the players, but the front office. You know, there's the support staff. There's respect and trust that flows up and down the chain of command. And so I think, you know, for that reason, we can hit the ground running. You know, it's you know, the first time I did this, it was. I came to realize that. I mean, it sounds weird, but it takes the better part of a year to truly understand your team. I'm talking about, you know, getting to know them on a deep level, what makes them tick, you know, what situations they thrive in, even down to their body language and those types of things that we read into. So that's a process that takes the better part of a year, and I think, you know, the fact that I've been here and a lot of those things are already established, like I said, we can hit the ground running. But that being said, I want to throw out some thank yous also. My family, my 4 boys, they're my 4 best friends, and you know, my wife, who for 35 years has navigated this baseball life to perfection. So, you know, I'm grateful for the people in my life. Thank you to Terry McGurk. And same name as my wife, Terry. Make that clear there, but and thank you to Alex and everybody else that was involved in this coming to fruition. Look, I understand the impact of this Braves brand. Played here for 3 years. You know, obviously coached for 8 years. I understand the wide-reaching fan base. You know, the history of this brand and how important it is to a lot of people, and how many people have worked really hard to make this brand really one of the envies of the sports world. When you consider, like I said, our far-reaching fan base goes coast to coast. This venue we play in, the history here, the success, the Hall of Famers, and ultimately the people. You know, it's the standards are really high, the expectations are high, and that's a good thing. It means you're doing something right. But you know, and I want to say thank you to Snit. I mean, without Snit, I wouldn't be here. You know, Snit and Bobby Cox brought me back into a Braves uniform 8 years ago, and I loved these last 8 years working for Snit. I would have happily done it for another 10 years. If Snit went another 10 years, I'd have happily done it. So learned a lot. I've evolved, you know, from my first job in Colorado. Yeah, I've learned a lot. The game has changed. You know, I'm sure I've changed, and hopefully wiser. But you know, and I think we need to appreciate and respect what's gone on here the last 8 years on Snit's watch. And we need to maintain some perspective, because I believe that, you know, outside of any team called the Dodgers, every team in baseball is signing up for our last 8 years. Matter of fact, they're tearing a hole in the paper, signing up for it. So I think we need to keep that in mind and honor that and maintain some perspective and understand what this man in front of me has done for this organization. And it's going to be his 50th year. So with that, I guess we'll take some questions. Okay. Thank you.
There are microphones on either side of the room. Mark Bowman.
Walt, can you just tell us, what was your thought process over the last couple of weeks as time progressed? Were you starting to get worried they may go externally?
Yeah, look, you never know, right? I mean, you try to read the tea leaves, and, you know, usually that doesn't work out too well. But, yeah, early on, I was very excited to be a part of it and to be considered a candidate. obviously as time went on, you start to, things start to creep in your mind, and yeah, there were times where I thought maybe this ship had sailed. But we all know Alex, how thorough he is and how stealthy he is. Likes to work under the cover of darkness. And so, this process was like that at times. But yeah, I couldn't be more excited. Yesterday when I got that call from Alex, tough to explain. There's a lot of responsibility here, like I said, with this brand, this franchise, but I embrace it.
Barrett.
Walt, you mentioned that you've changed, the game has changed since your time in Colorado. How has your view of advanced analytics changed during that span? Because the game has changed and moved in that direction.
Look, I've evolved with the game. I think if you don't, you're a fool. So, my philosophy is, why would anybody, especially in a position of leadership, turn their back on information? And Alex has done a great job, and his team has done a great job of blending, the wisdom that comes from being in uniform for a number of years, and the information that's available to us today, and the technology that's available. So I'm very curious when it comes to the information. I want it. And then, there's a point where you got to put context to it. And I always say, there's an art and a science to everything. The information gathering is the science part of it, and the art is putting context to it in the dugout and making it practical and pragmatic over the course of a 9-inning game. So, yeah, I think you have to evolve. The game has changed, like I said. And yeah, you'd be a fool not to evolve with the game.
Allison.
Two questions. Walt, what's one thing that you learned from Brian Snitker during your time working with him? And then for Alex, what stood out about Walt Weiss and during this process?
That's an easy one for me, and I think the top of the list, there's several things, but patience. It's really good for me to see Snit operate these last 8 years because, our personalities complement each other very well. I mean, obviously our personalities are different. We're two different people. But, my personality is always, to hurry up and get in there and fix things. And watching Snit have a feel for the timing of when to interject was very valuable for me. And to watch him absorb losses like he did. I mean, I'd come in his office because I always go in the office because I never wanted the manager. I never wanted Snit to have to feel a loss by himself. And I've been there, and nobody feels a loss more than a manager. So as a bench coach, I didn't want to forget that. So always checked in with Snit after the game, and usually it was him giving me the therapy. So his patience and his feel for the room and for situations, his timing, impeccable.
Yeah, from my standpoint, obviously I've worked with Walt for 8 years, but I've worked with him in the role of being the bench coach and never had a conversation with him. As we all know, the manager and the bench coach, the roles are totally different. I mean, being able to talk to him for the first time about being the manager of this team, it's not, sure, you can use your past experiences and your experiences here with the Braves, but it's not the same conversation. And so as much as I knew Walt, I knew everybody on our staff. That doesn't mean everyone was a candidate. So the manager role is very different. It's unique. It's incredibly challenging. And some people aren't suited for it, in my opinion. Getting a chance, even though I knew the person and the man, he had that doesn't mean that he would have necessarily been the best person for the job. And so having finally had a conversation about the manager and what that entails, because we never had those discussions in 8 years here. That wasn't the role. Those are conversations that I have with Snit. And then obviously going through the process and doing our work and so on. But at the end of the day, this was about the best person. Internal, external, didn't matter. This is the third time I've done this. 2 other times I've gone external. And I never had a thought process of it needs to be internal. It's the best person, period. period. You know, you hear different things about, well, the roster and this and that. The rosters change. You can change the manager at the same time. I mean, you need the right person, the right individual, no matter where they come from. And he stood out as the right man for the job.
Dave.
Walt, I know you said you've changed since the first time you did this in Colorado. How do you think this environment here with the Braves, you've been in it now for a long time, will help you succeed as a manager here by comparison to there, just the resources you have, how you've grown as a manager, the players you have, everything?
Look, the circumstances they couldn't be more different. I mean, when I took the job in Colorado, I was out of the game for 4 years. I mean, I worked as a special assistant to the GM and the manager for 8 years, but I was gone for 4 years. I was coaching high school football. So I got pulled back into it. You know, I got asked to do an interview, and I said, what the heck? You know, I've never done this. I'll go through this process. It'll be a good experience for me. I ended up getting a job. So, you know. And look, I took over. At that time, it was the season after the worst season in franchise history. Now, there's been some rougher times there recently, but at the time, it was the worst season in franchise history. So, and there were some things there, you know, culturally that, you know, took a lot of time and energy. Look, I love my time there. It gave me this opportunity. If I didn't do that job, I wouldn't be sitting here today. And I had great relationships there, and it really challenged me. And I'm very proud. Look, we didn't have a great record over that 4-year period. Very proud of what me and my staff did and the front office did as far as changing that culture and setting them up, you know, to be better. So I'm proud of that. You know. Here, it's obviously very different. I mean, think about yourselves. I mean, where are you, you know, now compared to 12 or 13 years ago? Hopefully, you're a little bit wiser. If not, you probably need to check yourself. So, yeah, I mean, I've experienced a lot, and at a high level, I know, like I said, I know what this brand means and how important it is and how high the standards are here, and that's what's exciting. I also know that I have people that I work for. They're going to have my back. You know, I understand it's a performance-based business, and I get it. I've been in the major leagues for 35 years now in a variety of roles, so I get it. You know, it's a bottom-line business. But the winning has to be a byproduct of the relationships you establish, the trust that you have with your players. You know, when it comes to players, and as it relates to coaches and managers, typically they ask themselves 3 questions. You know, does he care about me? Can I trust him? And can he make me better? And, you know, I feel like I've checked those 3 boxes already here over my last 8 years. So circumstances are completely different, and so are the expectations. But like I said, when the expectations are high, it means you're doing something well, so it's a good thing.
Michael. Oh, sorry, Gabe, do you have another question?
No. Me?
No, Gabe, go ahead.
Okay, cool. Walt, Terry, and your sons, you talked about their support. Could you just elaborate a little bit on just what their love and support meant to you since you made the decision to come back, especially?
Yeah. Well, look, they've been in my corner every step of the way. You know, when I got back in the game, yeah, that was a tough one in some ways because I like I said, I was away for 4 years, and I was a dad and a husband, full time. So, you know, the family gets uprooted when you get back into this game. This game is not conducive to family life. It's all consuming. So, like I said, they've been with me every step of the way. I told you my 4 boys are my 4 best friends. Along with my wife, and I mean my wife. she has superpowers in a lot of ways. When it comes to raising a family, she's special.
Michael.
This question's for Alex. What do you believe are the most important qualities for a manager, and why do you think that Walt meets that criteria?
You know, there's so many that you need, but Walt hit on a lot of them. But you know, being able to, you're dealing with so many things when you think about it. The manager, and especially the job's evolved. Even Stitt and I have talked about this. The job has evolved over time. The game has evolved. The staffs have evolved. And you think of the responsibilities you have day in and day out. You're dealing with 26 players, 26 alpha dogs. You're dealing with an expanded front office from what it was 20 years ago. You're dealing with an expanded media contingent, both from a social standpoint and a day-to-day beat writers and so on. Then you've got the in-game component, and then you've got a staff that you've got to deal with as well. So then you have to do the job well beyond that. But you're juggling all those things, and you're spread really, really thin. And from an emotional standpoint, it amazes me that just, you see these managers in the game and Snit and so on, just to not react, to stay calm, to stay patient, to stay even keeled, to be consistent, to be the same person day in and day out. That's hard to do. A lot of people can't do it. And also can maintain the respect of the clubhouse and the players and everybody around you, and also do a good job. So the list goes on and on. It's endless. These jobs are partnerships with players, office, media staff. You're partnering across the board. We all want the same thing. We all want to win. And, we might not always agree on how to get there, but, our values are all very aligned.
Grant.
Walt, I know you spoke glowingly about your time working on Brian Snitker's staff. You also, during your playing days, were able to play for some Hall of Fame managers, Bobby Cox, as well as Tony La Russa. I'm curious about those experiences from your playing days and now getting this opportunity to manage, how you incorporate that in the style in which you like to bring to your team.
Yeah. Oh, look, I mean, we're all a product of our experiences and the people we've been around. I was very fortunate to be around some great managers. And I take a little bit from all of them. I'm going to take things I've learned from Snit the last 8 years, as well as what I've learned from Tony La Russa, Bobby Cox, Renee Latchman, Don Baylor, Clint Hurdle. Those are all the managers I either played for or worked with. And look, I mean, that wisdom is shared, right? And that's how we get better, by being around wise people. So I'll take things from all those men, but in the end, it's going to look very different, because it's going to be my personality, my leadership style, my personal touch. So the delivery will be very different from any of the guys I've been around. But yeah, I've been fortunate. I always say, look, I never want to act like I have all the answers, because we all know better. But most of the things I've learned over the course of my life and my career, I've learned through failure, by screwing up. But and the fact that I've been around some pretty smart, wise people in this game. Been fortunate to have been around some high-level people, and every once in a while I paid attention. So a lot of the stuff I've stolen from other people and made it my own, and that's what's going to make it unique in the end.
Bo.
Alex, how many individuals did you interview for this job, and when did you know it was Walt, and what did set him apart from all the other candidates? Yeah, so we did a ton of work. We spent, I don't even remember, I feel like it's been a month, or it feels like dog years a little bit, right? So it's been exhaustive. And I mean, the amount of work and candidates and people we spoke to, there was just a lot without getting into specifics. I would say that over the weekend is when he started to. I had some conversations. I remember there was one I had Saturday morning. I thought about Walt Saturday a little bit, and then I had some conversations Saturday that really
impacted me, and then you're still chewing on it and going through stuff, and really ultimately had a few more that I needed to have on Monday, just to make sure that I checked all those boxes. And look, I knew Walt, but I only knew him to a certain level, right? I'm not down there working with him day in and day out, and it wasn't in the role of manager. So people can interview and say all the right things and do all the right things, but like I mentioned when I did my first Zoom with you guys, the background work is pretty important. And as much as I felt like I knew the person, still needed to do a lot of work and maybe have a couple conversations on Monday just to make sure some people that were around him a little bit more than anybody else, that I had significant faith and trust in what they had to say. I told them I was leaning in that direction, but I wanted to make sure that there wasn't anything I missed, and they both stamped it in a lot of ways, and ultimately talked to Terry as well that this was my choice and this is where I wanted to go, and walked him through the process and the thought process and why and how I check boxes and so on, and we obviously decided to go ahead. But it's a big decision, like Walt talked about. This is a big role. This is a big responsibility with where this club is, the expectation. Look, it was no fun not making the playoffs this year, and we can go through the reasons why. But that's just a standard that we've set here, and that's a credit to Snit, to Bobby Cox, to John Sherholtz that have set the standard here. You hear guys like Nick Saban. The standard is the standard, and it is. And we expect to be in the playoffs year in and year out. So. This is a real responsibility, and we owed it to make sure that we left no stone unturned and were as thorough as we could be, even if it was someone that was already internal.
Hearing from Alex Anthopoulos right now. But there you have it. Walt Weiss will lead the Braves, no stranger to the organization. So 11 seasons as both a player and a coach as well. So if you were tuning in to most of that, you heard him say he's worked under Brian Snitker for 8 years. He says he's learned a lot. He's evolved. He's wiser because of the experience that he had in that position. So if you're following along on YouTube, I want to read a few of the comments that we had coming in from that. This is from Bama Fan 194 saying he's part of the coaching staff, now promoted to manager. Good luck, Walt. And I thought this was a great way to end it. Dylan Sargent writing in and saying, let's get it, Walt. Time to get to work and back to the World Series. So well said. And there it is. Walt Weiss will lead the Braves moving forward in the 2026 season. Well, our time now is 11:28, and we're back right after this. Welcome back, everyone. Let's get you to some of the stories that we're following this morning. A death investigation is underway right now after a body was found outside of a post office. This post office located right near the airport. So Atlanta police have not released really any details about this, but officers did respond last night to a facility on Crown Road that's just east of I-75. We're told U.S. Postal Police were also on the scene investigating this. Our photojournalist there saw the medical examiner arrive, and then they saw a black car being towed away. So, of course, we'll update you on this story as soon as investigators release a little bit more information about what happened. And to some news of the day that you've probably seen today, former Vice President Dick Cheney has died. He passed away from pneumonia and cardiac and vascular disease. He was known as one of the most influential vice presidents in American history, a leading advocate for the invasion in Iraq as well, part of his legacy. Also served as White House Chief of Staff, Secretary of Defense, and Wyoming's congressman as well. Dick Cheney was 84 years old. So we find ourselves now day 35 of the government shutdown, which means that a lot of folks are working. They're going without a paycheck. They're trying to provide for their families. So there's a great need right now when it comes to putting food on the table. But the Episcopal Church of St. Peter and St. Paul in Marietta, they're teaming up with There's Hope for the Hungry to help local families in need. And we have our Chris Rosenthal out there live this morning with what they're doing to try to provide some help and some hope to those families that need it most right now. So, Chris, good morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, Elise. Yeah, they've been out here since about 10 this morning. They'll be out here till 1, and it's been a steady stream of cars this morning. It's a little bit of a lull right now, but cars coming up, picking up food grab bags, enough to feed a family of 4 for a couple of weeks. And I'm joined by Tom Martin and Pastor Pumphrey here from the church. And tell me, Tom, why are we here today?
Well, this is called Hope for the Hungry. The first Tuesday of each month, we advertise on lovely Fox TV and some other stations, and we like to offer people the opportunity to come get some food. We'll give them a box. Food feeds a family of 4 for 2 weeks, quarter milk, loaf of bread, and a box of cereal. And plus they have an opportunity to come inside and have a conversation with one of our counselors. And so we like to feel like we're giving them both physical nourishment and spiritual nourishment. Now this time, because of the current situation, our church responded for a request to even give more food this time. So we kind of double the amount we're giving because we had double in demand today. But it's a wonderful thing to be part of, and we've been part of it for 6 years now. And Hope for the Hungry, the organization, started at First Redeemer Church up in Cumming, Georgia. We partner with them for 6 years, and over that 15 years they've supported about 500,000 people. Today we will have 90 guests, which will support about 350 people total.
And you said that's about double what you normally need.
Yes.
And what are the people saying? You're talking to these people, you're counseling them. Do they have more concerns this go round this month?
They do have concerns, and we ask them to let them know first Tuesday, come back here. But they also express thankfulness that we cared for them. Some people will tell you, no one's ever prayed for me like this. And so I think what this is really a testament about this church and the culture in this church. We really reach out and try to care for people less fortunate than us.
Absolutely. That's Tom Martin with St. Peter and Paul Episcopal Church here in East Cobb, and this is the some of the pile of food. It was a much higher earlier, so they have whittled it down as the day goes by. They've had chickens, they've had fruit, they've had cereal. If you want to be a part of this, you can come register to be a recipient, or also reach out to the church to volunteer and help out.
Very nice. The need is great, and looks like they're doing some great work in getting those food and resources passed out to those who need them. So, Chris, thank you so much for reporting live for us in Marietta. We certainly appreciate it. Well, of course, you've been following Hurricane Melissa and just the devastating impact that it's had on Jamaica. So many of those island nations absolutely decimated. Parts of the Caribbean are still struggling right now just to try to put the pieces back together, get things back up and running in the best way that they can following Melissa, the strongest storm to ever make landfall in Jamaica. And so keep in mind that for islands like Jamaica, I mean, tourism, that's the main way that many residents make their living there. So that season for vacationing is coming back up quickly. quickly in so many of these areas that were just absolutely devastated by Melissa. So local officials have a big job cut out for them. They're rushing recovery and relief efforts, just trying to help those right now who need it most. The Jamaican government was initially expecting roughly more than 4 million visitors to come this winter season. It's unclear, though, what that number will look like. It's one thing we do know, it won't be that. Certainly what it usually is. There's not a chance with just the way things are looking there at this point. Full rebuilding could take up to 10 years or more since Hurricane Melissa left an estimated $22 billion in damage and economic loss. So certainly something that will be felt for a long time. And here's the thing, too. It's like when you see decimation like that, you see devastation and so many people needing help, your first thought might be to give. But the problem with that is that so often scammers are ready to take your money. They see this as an opportunity. So this morning we have Dale Cardwell, Atlanta consumer investigator, author of Don't Get Scammed, Get Smart. He's joining us so that hopefully we don't get taken advantage of in all this. And Dale, good morning to you. It's good to have you with us.
Thank you, Elise. How are you?
Hi. You know, it's good to actually talk to you in person. I see so many of your commercials. Well, this is cool to get to pick your brain a little bit for ways that that we can give to reputable organizations. So let's start with this. I mean, why is this such a big time for scammers? What makes us so susceptible to them right now?
At least part of the reason I wrote the book is because so many scams have morphed to the internet, and it's estimated that as many as 70% of the people that are asking you for money during times like this are not for real. And so what I want you to do is to research the charity. Search the name with the word scam or fraud in parentheses. Hit return and see what comes back. Check how they ask you to pay. Gift cards, wire transfers, or crypto. That's a scam. I want you to use a credit card or check only and make sure that the site starts with the letters HTTPS. Don't trust caller ID. Scammers will spoof local numbers, and don't be rushed. At least real charities will gladly take your donation anytime.
Of course, and they certainly need it right now, too. So you mentioned spoofing, but I want to talk AI for a second because, Dale, I feel like we keep seeing it everywhere. We keep hearing about how scammers are able to use AI. So what are some ways that we can be on the lookout for that and to avoid getting taken that way?
At least the number one thing I tell people is create a safe word with the people that you love, the people in your family. Have a code so that when you hear that voice on the phone, AI is so good, they can pretend to be your grandmother. They can pretend to be your kids. So I want you to shut it down and say, please repeat the safe word to me. If they can't repeat the safe word, hang up and call them back.
Very, very important information right there. That's advice I'm going to take, Dale, so I'm glad you mentioned that. So what are some steps that we can take if you've been watching some of the news stories, you've seen even what we just showed of what Jamaica looks like right now, you want to help? What are some things you need to do ahead of time to make sure that your money makes it to where it needs to go, Dale?
Yeah. Well, the old reliables, the Red Cross, those folks have been around for a long time. You know you can trust them. So I want you already to have the contacts of those reliable charities in your Rolodex. What's your charity's name and what is its website? How much goes directly to help? At least 70% of the money should be going to the people that need help. Is it a registered charity? And is my donation tax deductible? If they can't answer those questions, just hang up.
So what do we do if something happens and you end up falling victim? Is this something you can report? Is your money just gone? I mean, are there any steps that you should take if, heaven forbid, you do fall victim to one of these scams, Dale?
At least these days, if your money goes overseas, it's gone. I want you to watch out on social media, too. Just because a friend shares a link doesn't mean that it's legit. Only donate through verified charity sites, never individuals promising to pass it along.
Yeah, that's good advice. So speaking of those, are there any of these trusted organizations that we can rely on? Do you have some go-tos that you can give us that are safe to be able to donate to those?
Sure. The Red Cross, UNICEF, or Jamaica's Verified Relief Fund. Check with the Better Business Bureau or Wise Giving Alliance or Charity Watch before you give any money, Elise.
Very important. Okay, you mentioned your book. Let's talk about that for a bit. I mean, you've been doing this a long time. 35 years, you've seen it all, you've heard it all. So I'm sure this book is an incredible resource for our viewers. So share a little bit about that with us, Dale.
Well, Elisa wrote my first book 5 years ago, and it was called Don't Get Scammed, Get Smart, 7 Simple Steps to Becoming a Savvy Consumer. Well, I realized that in 2020, everything moved to the internet. So I had to write a new book, and it's called Don't Get Scammed, Get Smart, 7 Steps to Outsmart Today's Most Dangerous post-COVID scams. I mean, there are all kinds of scams out there. And the thing that you need to look for when you're looking at the URL, if it doesn't identify the real name of the organization that you believe it to be, that's a giveaway right there. But in about 2 hours, you're going to learn everything you need to know. It's a great book for your kids. It teaches the emotional triggers of what you need to look for when someone's trying to suck you in. You know, so many consumer experts will teach you the memorization techniques of knowing when a scam's coming. I want to teach you the emotional techniques of how you realize you're getting brought into a scam, Elise.
Very nice. Del Cardwell joining us this morning with some advice for those of us who want to give to disaster relief and not get scammed. And of course, talking about his book too, Don't Get Scammed, Get Smart. So Dale, thank you so much
you can pre-order.
Yeah.
And pre-order on Amazon right now. It comes out on the 14th.
Very nice. I'm glad you mentioned that. Dale, congratulations on this this new book that you have. And thank you again for checking in with us here on Fox Local. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, our time is now 11:42 and we're back with more right after this. Welcome back, everyone. All right, we're talking AI now. It's reshaping nearly every corner of the workforce. We talk a lot about this. We hear a lot about it. And while so many of these tools are boosting productivity, they're also raising some big questions about the future of work and employment and all of those things. So this morning, we've got Jeetu Patel. He's president and chief product officer at Cisco, joining us just to talk about how this technology is changing the workforce. So Jeetu, thank you so much for being on with us. Good morning.
For having me, Elise.
Of course. All right, let's dive into this. So how do you see, I mean, you're the expert here, how do you see AI changing the workplace over the next few years?
Look, I think the workplace of the future is going to look very different. We are in one of the most exciting shifts that we've ever witnessed in history, where we're moving in the second phase of AI now. So the first phase of AI was 3 years ago when ChatGPT came out, and intelligent chatbots answered our questions that made it feel like magic. We're now in the second phase where these agents, Elise, are going to be able to conduct tasks and jobs for us almost fully autonomously on behalf of humans. And so it's an exciting time. I think there's a lot of fear around jobs getting lost. We should talk about that a little bit more. But I do feel like this is one where the kind of problems humanity will be able to solve over the course of the next decade or two are ones that we would have never even dreamt possible to solve, because there's going to be such a profound level of intelligence that gets augmented to society.
Yeah, it is one of those things. You think of it in two ways. You think about the possibilities that are within AI, but then you also look at the impact that it's having on jobs, job loss, job cuts that come from AI. So are there certain industries where you're seeing the biggest effects from that right now because of AI?
I think what will happen is right now there's a fear that AI is going to take your job. I actually feel like that's the first level of maturity of thinking in my mind. The second level of maturity of thinking is someone that uses AI better than me more likely to take my job than AI taking my job? And then the third level of maturity of thinking is when you start to realize, just like we do with many other technologies today, that if you don't use AI in the future, you won't be able to get your job done. Now, that doesn't mean that every job won't get refactored, that every job won't be slightly different than the way it is right now, or in some cases, materially different than the way it is right now. But I do feel like that's kind of the way to create a mental model, is don't worry as much about AI taking your job and worry more about what you can do with AI to get your job done in an infinitely more productive way compared to what you're doing right now. And frankly, it's not just about productivity. It's also about, with AI, you'll be able to do things that you could never even dream of doing before.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a bit. What you're saying is, using AI to get our jobs done and to get them done better. I mean, what are some steps that we can take to stay competitive in being able to use these tools?
I think the first step you take is don't sit on the sidelines, don't get intimidated by these technologies, but actually start experimenting. And so everyone should have some kind of an AI set of tools that they're starting to use, just so you can get a flavor, an instinct, some kind of texture on what these technologies are and what they're capable of doing. And then try to incorporate those into your day-to-day lives to figure out a way that you can then use it to get more productive. You can then use it to do things that you couldn't do in the past. I think that initial step of just leaning in and starting to experiment is probably the most important thing. We did a study recently where we found that majority of the companies are actually using AI, but 2/3 of the companies that are using these agents are actually finding that they're either meeting or exceeding their expectations. What was really instructive, though, was the people that were experimenting with it for a longer amount of time, which isn't counterintuitive, were the ones that got the most amount of benefit from it. And so my advice would be, do not sit on the sidelines. That's never a good strategy when there's a mega trend like this. You have to use it as a tailwind. Don't fight it.
What a great way to put it. It truly is. I mean, I think that sums up so much of this, what you just said. So there's so much talk, G2, about AI, data privacy, and all of that. And infrastructure is not necessarily keeping up with what it needs to when it comes to AI. So how can those outdated networks and those systems put workers at risk, put companies at risk?
Yeah, the way that I think about this right now is that, if you think of what are the constraints and impediments of AI, we think there are three of them. The first one is there's a massive infrastructure constraint. There's just not enough power, compute, or network bandwidth capacity to fulfill the needs of AI today. So we have to solve that problem. And in fact, that's why you're seeing data centers being built where the power is available rather than pulling power to the data center. It's starting to happen all over the world because the ability for a country to generate tokens will be essentially directly proportionate to their GDP and will be directly proportionate to national security. So the first constraint is an infrastructure constraint. The second constraint is a trust deficit. If people don't trust these systems, they're never going to use them. So we have to make sure we create, kind of mitigation actions so that if there's something that goes wrong, it doesn't put people in harm's way. And the third one is a data gap. And so to your point on, what do you do about these systems that might have outdated networks? I think the entire infrastructure for AI will need to get updated over time. And we have to get more and more, skilled and dexterous at keeping our infrastructure up to date, because these adversaries or bad actors that actually do cyber attacks, they also are going to get very sophisticated because they have access to the same tools, at least, that you and I do. And so we have to make sure that we can mitigate those attacks in the proper way, and we have to upskill people to really understand when something is a very seductive bait that you shouldn't take with AI.
And there we have it. The expert Jitu Patel with Cisco joining us with some AI help, talking how it's impacting the workforce and what we can expect moving forward. So Jitu, thank you so much for hanging with us this morning. We appreciate your expertise.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Our time is now 11:50, and we will be back right after this. Now.
Okay, good. Sorry about that.
Hey, that's cool. Welcome back, everyone. The 90th annual Atlanta Dogwood Festival is making a comeback in April 2026 at Piedmont Park. This is some really big news, especially if this is a story that you've been following. It was up in the air for a bit, but it will be coming back with a twist. So this morning we are talking to Brian Hill, Executive Director of the festival, with more on the big news and some of the changes that are happening next year. So Brian, good morning, and thank you so much for being on with us.
Yeah, good morning. Glad to be here with you.
Hey, okay, so let's dive into this because this is exciting. I want to know what this has all been like for you, right? Because there was news that it was going to be the end of the Dogwood Festival, and then there was news of a fundraiser, and now there's the news that it's coming back. So has this been an absolute roller coaster for you as the executive director?
Most definitely, and the board has been just up and down over which way we're going to go. And when we made the call out that we needed help on fundraising, it really did look like that was the end, because we weren't going to go into this year if we couldn't be fiscally responsible and know we could pay our bills. And at one point, it didn't look like we were going to be able to. So yeah, it's been a real roller coaster. And once we put out the information that we needed the help, the citizens of the city of Atlanta really responded and jumped in there and made donations of 5, 10, 50, even more. We've had a couple of foundations that came in. But I think the real saving grace is we've been trying to work with the mayor's office to see what we could do with them to make this, not just this year, but to make it work in the long term, be financially stable. And they have agreed to let us do a ticket, something we didn't really want to do, but it's a nominal ticket price. It'll be $5 on Friday and $10 on Saturday, $10 on Sunday. And we'll have some weekend special passes available and all. But that will allow us to do ticketing within a festival, where usually that's an entirely different type of permit for like music festivals and things, where the whole park has to be gated off, and that you have to have a real controlled entrance. And we didn't really want to go that far with it, and frankly, we couldn't have afforded to. So the mayor's office has worked with us and compromised to let us do the tickets, and that's going to be a massive help. And we think that's the way
of course
forward in the future for many years.
Yeah, Brian, let me ask you this. Due to the nature of a live stream, we are out of time, but let me have you direct us where we can go for more information on this big change, there being this being a ticketed event, dates, parking, the details. Where can we go to learn more about this, Brian?
Simply dogwood.org,
Okay.
April 10th to the 12th, and we'll see everybody there.
Yes, this is some really good news for the
Definitely.
community. Such a draw of an event. So it's so good to hear it's going to be back in 2026. Brian Hill joining us with more on the big news. Brian, thank you so much. We appreciate it. I'm sure we'll be talking to you again before the festival. So we appreciate it. All right, it is 11:56. We have got you covered with more news and weather in just a few minutes on the noon show. So we hope you have a great Tuesday.